Sarah froze, her heart pounding as Jake's words hung in the air between them. "If we were the same age, I'd visit you every night." The casual joke had slipped from his lips so easily, but the intensity in his eyes told a different story. She found herself asking the question before she could stop herself, does age really matter? The silence that followed was deafening, interrupted only by the sound of his daughter calling from the other room. What Sarah didn't know was that by morning, everything between them would change forever. Jake Matthews hadn't planned on hiring a tutor for his daughter. At 38, he'd spent the last 6 years raising 12-year-old Emma alone after his wife's death, balancing his architecture firm with school pickups and teenage drama. But when Emma's math grades started slipping, the school counselor suggested extra help. That's how 25-year-old Sarah Wilson, with her flowing white blonde hair and infectious laugh, entered their lives 3 months ago. Sarah had just finished her master's in education and needed the extra income while applying for full-time teaching positions. She never expected to find herself looking forward to Tuesday and Thursday evenings at the Matthews household more than anything else in her week. Jake always made sure to be home during her sessions with Emma, offering coffee and conversation after they finished. Tonight had been different. Emma had gone to bed early with a headache, leaving Jake and Sarah alone in the kitchen, talking for hours. The conversation flowed effortlessly between them, touching on books, travel dreams, and life philosophies. Sarah couldn't remember the last time she'd connected with someone so deeply. "You know," Jake said, leaning against the counter, his athletic frame relaxed yet somehow commanding the space, "Emma talks about you constantly. You've become her hero in just a few months." Sarah tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, smiling. "She's an amazing kid. You've done a wonderful job with her." "Some days I feel like I'm failing miserably," he admitted, vulnerability flashing across his face before his trademark humor returned. "Single parenting should come with a manual and a lifetime supply of coffee." "I think you're doing better than you give yourself credit for," Sarah said softly. That's when it happened, the joke that wasn't really a joke, followed by her question that hung between them like a challenge. Before Jake could answer, Emma called out for him, complaining about her headache worsening. The moment shattered, and Sarah gathered her things to leave, her mind spinning with possibilities and doubts. What she didn't see was Jake watching her from the window as she drove away, his expression torn between longing and restraint. The following week, Sarah arrived to find Jake unusually distant. Emma chatted happily about school drama while they worked through algebraic equations, but Jake remained in his home office, emerging only briefly to offer a polite hello. The easy rapport they'd built seemed to have vanished overnight, leaving Sarah wondering if she'd imagined the connection between them. As weeks passed, the tension grew. Jake began scheduling late meetings on tutoring days, leaving Sarah with Emma and a hastily scribbled note about leftovers in the fridge. The few times they did interact, his jokes felt forced, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. Sarah told herself it was for the best, she was Emma's tutor, nothing more. The 13-year age gap between them was just one of many reasons why anything beyond friendship was impossible. But then came the night that changed everything. Sarah arrived for her regular session to find Emma in tears, a college brochure clutched in her hands. "Dad's sending me to boarding school," she sobbed. "He doesn't want me anymore." Sarah's heart sank as she comforted the girl, assuring her that couldn't possibly be true. When Jake arrived home an hour later, the confrontation was inevitable. How could you make such a huge decision without even discussing it with her? Sarah demanded once Emma had gone upstairs. Jake's jaw tightened. "I'm her father. I don't need to consult with her tutor about educational decisions." The word stung, but Sarah stood her ground. "She thinks you're sending her away because you don't want her anymore." Something broke in Jake's expression. He sank into a chair, running a hand through his dark hair. "That's the last thing I want her to think." "Then why?" "Because I'm failing her," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Emma needs stability, structure. Things I can't seem to provide while running the firm. That's not true, Sarah insisted. What she needs is her father. And what if her father is a mess? Jake looked up, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that took her breath away. What if her father is distracted because he can't stop thinking about his daughter's tutor? The confession hung in the air between them, changing everything and nothing all at once. Jake. I know, he interrupted, standing abruptly. I know it's inappropriate. You're too young. I'm your employer. I'm a package deal with a preteen. There are a million reasons why this is a terrible idea. Sarah stepped closer, her heart racing. You never answered my question that night. What question? Does age really matter? Before he could respond, the front door burst open. A tall, elegantly dressed woman in her 50s swept in, her critical gaze taking in the scene before her. Margaret, Jake said, tension radiating from him. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow. Clearly, his mother-in-law replied coldly, her eyes fixed on Sarah. I decided to come early. Who is this? The introduction was awkward, with Margaret making it immediately clear she viewed Sarah as little more than a glorified babysitter. As Sarah gathered her things to leave, she overheard Margaret's cutting remarks. Really, Jacob? She can't be more than 25. What would Eliza think? Sarah slipped out without saying goodbye, her chest tight with emotions she couldn't name. She spent the weekend alternating between convincing herself to quit and drafting text messages to Jake that she never sent. By Tuesday, she'd resolved to maintain professional boundaries and focus solely on Emma's education. But when she arrived at the Matthews house, Jake was waiting on the porch steps. Emma's at her grandmother's, he said, standing as Sarah approached. I told Margaret I needed to speak with you privately about Emma's progress. Is that what we're doing? Sarah asked, keeping her distance. No. Jake's honesty was disarming. I wanted to apologize for the other night. And for avoiding you these past weeks. You don't owe me an explanation. I think I do. He gestured to the porch swing. Can we talk? Really talk? The conversation that followed was raw and honest. Jake spoke about his grief after losing his wife to cancer, his fears of failing Emma, and the guilt he felt about his growing feelings for Sarah. I haven't felt this way about anyone since Eliza, he admitted. And that terrifies me. Not just because of our age difference, but because I don't know if I'm ready. If Emma's ready. I understand, Sarah said softly. Emma has to come first. But that doesn't mean there isn't room for someone else, Jake replied, his eyes meeting hers. If that someone is patient enough to let us figure it out together. What followed were weeks of careful navigation. Sarah continued tutoring Emma, but Jake made sure they had time to get to know each other better, coffee after sessions, occasional lunch dates while Emma was at school. They built something tentative and precious, both aware of the challenges but unwilling to walk away from the connection they'd found. Margaret remained a formidable obstacle, her disapproval evident in every interaction. She made pointed comments about Sarah's youth and inexperience, questioning her motives at every turn. The boarding school brochures continued to arrive, with Margaret insisting it was what Eliza would have wanted for her daughter. The situation came to a head at Emma's 13th birthday party. Sarah had helped Jake plan a surprise celebration, complete with Emma's favorite decorations and friends. As Emma blew out her candles, Margaret pulled Jake aside, her voice carrying just enough for Sarah to overhear. You're making a mistake, Jacob. This girl is using you and Emma to play house. She'll leave when she realizes how much work it is to be with a man your age with a teenage daughter. Sarah stepped outside for air, fighting back tears. She'd known from the beginning that a relationship with Jake wouldn't be simple, but Margaret's words struck at her deepest insecurities. Was she being naive? Was the age gap too significant to overcome? She was so lost in thought she didn't hear Jake approach until he spoke. "Don't let her get to you," he said quietly. "Margaret's been trying to control Emma's life, and mine, since Eliza died." "Maybe she has a point," Sarah admitted. "I'm 25, Jake. I've never been married, never raised a child. What do I know about being part of your life?" "You know how to make Emma laugh when she's stressed about math," Jake replied, stepping closer. "You know that I take my coffee with 1 sugar, not 2. You know that sometimes the best thing to say is nothing at all." His hand found hers. "Age is just a number, Sarah. What matters is how we feel when we're together." Before she could respond, Emma burst through the door, her face alight with excitement. "Dad! Sarah! Come quick, Grandma's leaving." They followed her inside to find Margaret gathering her purse, her expression thunderous. "I can see I'm not needed here," she announced. "Emma clearly prefers her tutor's company to her grandmother's." "That's not fair," Jake began, but Emma interrupted. "I love you, Grandma, but you're always trying to send me away. Sarah wants me to stay home with Dad." Margaret's gaze shifted between them. "And what happens when this arrangement falls apart? Who will be there to pick up the pieces?" "I will," Jake said firmly. "I'm Emma's father. That hasn't changed and never will." After Margaret left, an uncomfortable silence fell over the party. Emma's friends had gone home, leaving the 3 of them surrounded by half-eaten cake and deflated balloons. Emma looked between her father and Sarah, her expression unreadable. "Are you guys, like, dating?" she asked bluntly. Jake looked at Sarah, uncertainty in his eyes. They hadn't defined their relationship, careful to keep things casual around Emma. "We've been spending time together," Sarah answered carefully. "Getting to know each other better." Emma considered this. "Is that why Grandma was so mad?" "Partly," Jake admitted. "Grandma thinks there are certain rules about who people should be with." "Because Sarah's younger than you?" "Yes." Emma rolled her eyes with all the dramatic flair of a teenager. "That's stupid. Sarah's awesome, and you smile more when she's around." She paused, suddenly serious. "But if you guys break up, do I still get to keep her as my tutor? Because I have a math test next month." The tension broke as they all laughed, the simple acceptance of a child cutting through the complications adults created. In the months that followed, they built something beautiful together. Sarah found a full-time teaching position at Emma's school, which helped establish her independence while keeping her close to the Matthews family. Jake stood up to Margaret, making it clear that while she would always be Emma's grandmother, the decisions about their family belonged to him. It wasn't always easy. There were raised eyebrows from other parents, whispered comments about their age difference, and moments of doubt when cultural references fell flat or life experiences didn't align. But there was also laughter, understanding, and a deepening connection that transcended numbers on a birth certificate. 1 year after that first fateful conversation in Jake's kitchen, they sat together on the same porch swing, watching Emma practice soccer moves in the yard. "Remember when you asked if age really matters?" Jake said, his arm around Sarah's shoulders. "I remember. I think I finally have an answer." He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "It matters in all the ways that make life richer, the different perspectives we bring, the lessons we've learned at different times. But it doesn't matter in the only way that counts." He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "It doesn't change how I feel about you." Sarah leaned into him, watching Emma execute a perfect kick. "We make a good team, the 3 of us." "We do," Jake agreed. "And I'd like to make it official." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "If you're ready." The ring inside was simple and elegant, a single diamond flanked by 2 smaller stones. "One for each of us," Jake explained. "You, me, and Emma." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, words failing her. When Emma noticed what was happening, she raced over, throwing her arms around them both. Finally, she exclaimed, "I've been helping him pick out that ring for months." As they embraced, Sarah realized that love didn't follow rules or timelines. It simply found its way to the people who were meant to find each other, regardless of the obstacles between them. In the end, age wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the family they had built together. One day, one challenge, one moment of joy at a time. If you enjoyed this story about finding love and family in unexpected places, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming content that reminds us all that love knows no boundaries. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country in the comments below.